Okay, I've got a riddle for you to kick us off.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
What do a minor fender bender in 2005, a 340-ton rock in a museum, and the Great Depression all have in common?
That sounds like the setup for a very, very long and complicated joke.
It does, right? But seriously, those are the core pieces for our deep dive today. I was going through the sources you sent over, and it's quite a mix. We've got cybersecurity manuals, moral philosophy.
Some really scathing art criticism.
Oh, yeah. And then a full-on economic breakdown of the 1930s.
Hmm?
On the surface, I mean, they seem totally unrelated.
You wouldn't think to put a hacker and an art critic in the same room, no. But there is a thread that ties them all together.
And what's that?
It all comes down to standards, discipline, and what you could call the law of unintended consequences.
The law of unintended consequences. That's the idea that when you try to fix something, you often just break it more.
Exactly. It's what happens when we try to force an outcome, whether it's a hacker forcing a system, someone trying to force another person to be charitable, or, a government trying to fix an entire economy.
It seems like abandoning standards and discipline just leads to chaos.
It gets messy very, very quickly.
Okay, so let's map this out for everyone. We're going to start in the digital world with cyber attacks,
Then move to the philosophical,
then the aesthetic, the world of art.
and finish with the big one, the economic. It's a journey from the micro to the macro.
Let's do it. So cybersecurity. I think most people, when they hear cyber attack, they picture a guy in a hoodie, dark room, green code scrolling down a screen.
The classic Hollywood hacker,
Yeah.
a matrix view of things. And that's great for movies, but the sources we looked at, especially the one on cyber defense, make it clear that's not the real threat anymore.
Right, because why spend months trying to crack some military-grade encryption
Right.
when you can just trick someone into giving you the password?
Exactly. The sources call this vulnerability the human element. It's the weakest link. You can have the best firewall money can buy, but if one person inside that wall lacks the discipline to, say, verify a source, then the whole thing is useless. The hackers are in.
This is what's called social engineering, right?
Right. Social engineering is the art of manipulating people. It's not a tech hack, it's a psychological one. And the sources break it down into three main types.
I saw these. Phishing, and smishing.
The unholy trinity.
Okay, so phishing that's the classic email scam, the Nigerian prince, that sort of thing. But it's gotten way more sophisticated.
Much more. Now it's called spear phishing. They do their homework. The email will look like it came from your CEO or your bank. It's targeted.
Then there's vishing, voice phishing.
The phone calls? This is the IRS. You owe back taxes. Pay us in iTunes gift cards or you're going to jail.
I've gotten those. They always try to make you panic.
That's the key. Panic makes people stupid. They create urgency so you don't have time to think. You just react. And the last one is smishing.
Smishing. SMS phishing.
Yep. The text messages. FedEx. We couldn't deliver your package. Click here to reschedule.
Get those all of the time.
We all do. And in all three cases, phishing, vishing, smishing, the goal is the same.
Right.
Bypass the tech by hacking the human. And once the human clicks.
That's when the malware gets in. The sources mentioned a few of these. Ransomware is making all the headlines.
It is. The Colonial Pipeline attack, the city of Baltimore, both were ransomware. It basically encrypts all your data and holds it hostage until you pay up.
There's also Trojans and logic bombs. A logic bomb sounds like something from a spy movie.
It's actually terrifyingly simple. It's just a piece of code that sits dormant in your system. It does nothing for weeks, maybe months, until a certain condition is met.
Like a specific date.
A specific date, or maybe an employee's name gets deleted from the payroll system, and then boom, it detonates and corrupts or deletes everything.
But the one that really got me was the zero-day attack. The name alone is just ominous.
It's the absolute nightmare scenario for cybersecurity professionals. A zero-day attack exploits a vulnerability that the software developers don't even know exists yet.
So they've had 0 days to create a patch.
Exactly. Your antivirus software has no idea what to look for. The sources point to Stuxnet as a famous example.
Stuxnet, that was the one that hit the Iranian nuclear program, right?
Yes, it was a computer worm that physically destroyed their centrifuges by making them spin out of control.
Wow.
All while telling the control room monitors that everything was operating normally. But think about this. If a hacker have a zero-day exploit, your software can't save you.
So what's the defense?
Human discipline. The only defense is a person who has the discipline to not click the link, to verify the source, to follow the protocol. It all comes back to standards. If you relax them, you get hacked.
Okay, so that's people manipulating others for bad reasons. Let's pivot. The second source you sent is a story about someone manipulating a stranger for what he thought was a good reason.
This is the Michael Schur story. And for context, he's the creator of the TV show The Good Place, which is all about moral philosophy. So this is stuff he thinks about a lot.
So the story goes, it's 2005, right after Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. The news is just awful. Schur's in L.A., and his wife gets into a tiny fender bender.
A really minor one.
He calls it a pencil mark on the other car's bumper. But the other driver wants to go through insurance and gets a quote to fix it for $836.
And this just sets Schur off.
He completely loses it. He's thinking, people are dying in New Orleans, the world is ending, and this guy is worried about a scratch.
So he decides he's going to force a good outcome. He tries to, like you said, hack the guy's ethics.
He tells the driver, look, I will give you the $836, but only if you promise to donate it to the Red Cross for Katrina relief. If you fix your car, I'm not giving you a dime.
And then he takes it a step further.
He goes on his blog and starts a campaign. He gets his readers to pledge money over $25,000 that they'll donate, but only if this random guy agrees not to fix his bumper. He creates this huge public pressure campaign.
On its face, it sounds kind of noble, right? Turning a fender bender into a huge charity donation.
But the source says Schur started to feel sick about it. He realized he'd done something wrong, but he couldn't figure out what.
So he dives into moral philosophy to figure out why doing something nice made him feel like a jerk. This is where it gets really interesting. He looks at it through 3 different lenses.
Kant, Aristotle, and the Utilitarians. Let's start with Kant.
Okay, so Immanuel Kant is famous for the categorical imperative.
The whole what if everybody did this idea.
Exactly. Act in a way that you would want to be a universal law. And if you universalize Schur's behavior, well, imagine a world where every minor personal dispute gets tied to some unrelated global tragedy.
It would be unbearable. You couldn't function.
You couldn't. Kant would also say you can't treat a person as a means to an end. Schur was using this other driver as a tool, as a prop, to make himself feel charitable. It violates the guy's autonomy.
Okay, so what about Aristotle?
Aristotle is all about virtue ethics, the golden mean. Virtue isn't about having a trait, it's about having the right amount of it. Schur realized he was showing an excess of anger and a deficiency of friendliness. He wasn't being virtuous, he was just being a bully for a cause he believed in.
But what about the utilitarians? They'd be on his side, wouldn't they? I mean,
Yeah.
25 grand for the Red Cross, the ends justify the means.
You'd think so, since utilitarianism is all about the result, about maximizing happiness. But even there, the source argues it fails, because if you create a world where people are afraid to claim what's rightfully theirs, like insurance money, for fear of being mobbed by an internet crusade.
You're creating what Schur called a stinky world.
A stinky world, yes. The total amount of fear and anxiety his campaign created might actually outweigh the good of the donation.
So the takeaway fits our theme perfectly. You can't force someone to be ethical. In fact, forcing your ethics onto someone else is, ironically, deeply unethical.
It violates the unspoken social standards that allow us to interact with each other as free individuals.
Speaking of violating standards, let's talk about that 340-ton rock.
Ah, yes. Levitated mass.
We're shifting to our third topic now.
Art.
Art. And the source material here does not pull its punches. It contrasts Michelangelo's David, a masterpiece of skill carved from marble, with this installation at a Los Angeles museum, which is, well, it's just a giant boulder suspended over a walkway.
And the argument in the source is that this represents a total collapse of objective standards in art. It traces the start of this decline all the way back to the Impressionists.
Now, hold on. I like Monet. Are they really blaming Monet for the rock?
Well, the argument isn't that Monet was bad. It's that while painters like Monet and Renoir had incredible discipline and merit, they also opened the door to what's called aesthetic relativism.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Pretty much. And once you say that standards are totally subjective, the source claims it's a very slippery slope until you have no standards at all.
Which brings us to my absolute favorite story in all these sources, the apron test.
Oh, this one is just... it's brutal.
It's so telling. So an art professor is teaching a class of graduate students. These are future art critics. And he puts a slide up of a painting. It looks like a Jackson Pollock. Drips, splatters, very abstract. He asks them to analyze it.
And being grad students, they have very eloquent and complicated things to say about it.
Oh, they talk about the dynamic energy, the composition, the use of negative space. They praise it to the heavens.
And only after they've all committed to how great it is.
He tells them the truth.
Yeah.
It's not a painting. It's a close-up photo of his dirty studio apron.
And they couldn't tell the difference.
That's the ultimate emperor has no clothes moment. They couldn't distinguish between what they're told is a masterpiece and a dirty rag.
And that's the point the source makes. In something like, say, Olympic figure skating, we have objective standards. If a skater just flopped around on the ice, we wouldn't give them a gold medal because they said it was their personal expression.
But in art, we do. The source lists some really wild examples. A painting of the Virgin Mary made with cow dung and bits of pornography.
And a sculpture of a policewoman urinating?
With a puddle of synthetic urine? I mean, why?
The argument is that shock value has replaced skill. When you don't have the discipline to create actual beauty, you resort to just shocking people for attention. And the experts, the museum directors and critics, are the ones enabling it.
So just because a small group of people decides a rock or a dirty apron has value, that doesn't make it so. Without standards, you get nonsense.
If anything can be art, then nothing is art. The standards are the filter.
Okay, so we've seen what happens when discipline is abandoned in cybersecurity, ethics, and art. Let's raise the stakes one more time and talk about the economy.
This brings us to the Great Depression and the government's attempts to fix it.
Yeah, the story we all learned in school is pretty simple. The stock market crashed in '29, the economy fell apart, and then Franklin Roosevelt came in with a New Deal and saved the day.
But the source we're using, an analysis by Thomas Sowell, argues that's not what the data shows at all.
This part was fascinating. So the market crashes in October 1929. Unemployment spikes, obviously. But then things start to self-correct. By June of 1930, unemployment had actually fallen back down to 6.3%.
Wait, 6.3? That's not great, but it's a recession, not a decade-long depression.
Exactly. It was a bad recession. But then the government decided it had to do something, and that something was the Smoot-Hawley tariff.
This was the bill to put massive taxes on imports. The idea was to protect American jobs.
Over 1,000 economists signed a letter begging the president not to sign it. They said it would start a global trade war.
And they were ignored. And the economists were right. Immediate retaliation from other countries. They stopped buying American goods. And within 5 months, unemployment shot into the double digits, and it stayed there for the rest of the decade. They tried to force a good outcome and ended up breaking the world economy.
But what about the New Deal? FDR's programs, the NRA, the AAA? Surely those helped.
The source argues they did the exact opposite. They introduced what economists call regime uncertainty.
Okay, what does that mean in simple terms?
Imagine you're playing Monopoly, but every few turns, the banker just changes the rules. Suddenly, pass and go costs you money. Or all rents are cut in half. Or your properties might be seized.
I wouldn't build anything. I'd just hoard my cash and wait.
Exactly. And that's what business owners did. FDR's government was constantly changing the rules on industry, on labor, on prices. Nobody knew what was coming next, so nobody invested. Nobody hired.
So the constant attempt to fix the economy actually paralyzed it.
It created a climate of total uncertainty. Capital froze.
So if the New Deal didn't end the Depression, what did?
World War II. But, and this is the key point, not for the reason most people think. It wasn't just about government spending.
Well, pulling 12 million men out of the workforce to send to war definitely helps the unemployment numbers.
It does, that's true. But the crucial economic change was something called cost-plus contracts.
Cost-plus.
The government went to companies like Ford and GM and said, we need you to build tanks and planes. We will pay you for the total cost of production plus a guaranteed profit.
So it introduced certainty, a standard.
Certainty. For the first time in a decade, business owners knew the rules. They knew if they invested in a factory, they would make their money back. The government stopped tinkering and just let them build.
And the economy roared back to life.
The industrial engine finally started again. The constant meddling stopped.
It's really all the same story, isn't it? Whether it's a line of code or an entire economy.
The pattern is remarkably consistent.
So let's wrap this all up. In cybersecurity, safety comes from the discipline to follow the rules, to not get socially engineered.
Yeah.
In ethics, a good outcome doesn't justify bullying. You have to respect the standard of individual autonomy.
Correct.
In art, when you abandon objective standards, you end up celebrating a dirty apron as a masterpiece or a rock. And in economics, a government trying to constantly fix things just creates uncertainty and prolongs the pain.
It creates chaos where no one can plan for the future.
So what's the final thought for the listener here? Why does all this matter?
I think it leaves us with a really provocative question about the nature of freedom. We tend to think of freedom as the absence of rules, freedom to do whatever you want.
But what we've seen today is that that's not freedom, that's just chaos.
Exactly. True freedom and real quality, whether it's in your character, in art, or in an economy, might actually come from having stricter standards. It comes from the discipline to follow the rules, and maybe most importantly, the discipline to leave things alone and let them work.
Sometimes the hardest thing to do is nothing at all.
That is the ultimate discipline.
Well, on that note, I think I'm going to go be very disciplined about not clicking any weird links in my inbox. Thanks for taking this deep dive.
My pleasure.
And thanks to all of you for listening. Stay safe, stay disciplined, and we'll see you next time.